Can't take it back, no. I've got so much left to say, but I'll take my words and walk away.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Wargames, and we're back. We're finally and officially back. I do apologize for the delay in January, but I did have a slight problem with YouTube, and for some reason, because I didn't record a lot of videos and upload a lot of videos, I could not upload a video longer than 10 minutes. So I apologize. It did take some doing to get all of that sorted out with YouTube and everyone, but it's finally sorted out. So quickly before I get to the reason why we're here for this episode today is we are going to be doing a Stellaris and Hearts of Iron Let's Play series. The Stellaris one will be multiplayer, and the Hearts of Iron 4 I will be doing single player. The Stellaris one I have been waiting on a little bit because in a couple of days the latest DLC and updates for it basically is coming out, which is going to bring a lot of new changes to it. So I'm going to be doing a series once that comes out, so that you guys can get the latest of Stellaris. And it will be the same with Hearts of Iron 4. Unfortunately, Waking the Tiger DLC is coming out in March, not in February. But in the meanwhile, we will be doing Wargame with Dragon videos, such as this one, and Space Engineers, and a few other videos. But I hope you enjoy it. So on to what we're doing today. Today, I have seen and remembered on my channel that I haven't done any red for countries for Wargame Red Dragon, red for decks to be precise. So today we're going to be doing a USSR armored deck. Now this isn't in a restricted era, so this is all of the units that an armored deck can have for the USSR, and I'm just going to show you one of the ways that I prep with the USSR that I feel is the best way to go with them. If you disagree or have other ideas of what to take, please write to me in the comments below. But first things you got to do with the USSR, you have to have your FOBs. I mean, especially if you have artillery or rocket support, that is going to be vital and crucial to keep them fed. Next, a UAZ. Now, a lot of people say to take like a BMP-1K or a T-72K for a command vehicle. I, on the other hand, feel that, I mean, it's 30 to 70 more, not 30 to 100 more command points depending on which vehicle you take. So I just take the normal UAZ, basically this little Jeep, Russian Jeep, just for a simple fact they're cheaper and you can spend the other points on something to protect it instead of having a well-armored thing, but make it a bit more of a target, basically. So next things up, we have 2 slots left. I usually take only the MI6 supply transports, just because, I mean, the Ural 4320 can only take 1,100 liters of supply. Granted, you can buy 9 of them, where the MI6 you can only take 3. So it is a numbers game. I mean, one could argue that if you take 18 of these instead of 6 of these, you will have more. That is up for discussion, but I just prefer the helicopters because they can get across the map faster, depending, especially if you have a large map with like a 4v4 match going on. So next up we will be taking a... You see, I generally don't understand the reasoning behind this, because the Motostrelki 90 has a crappier RPG than the normal Motostrelki. So the only difference is the normal Motostrelki's accuracy is lower and the AP power is lower as well. But they are a little bit cheaper, and they use the same BMP. So I'm going to take the Motostrelki just because they're a good spammable infantry type. And then next up we will be taking... I just need to remember, because I have been playing with the Russians for a bit, but I forget which type is which. So yes, normally I take this one, the Igla-N. I apologize for any Russian or previous, well, let's just say Russian viewers if I pronounce something wrong. I do apologize. I will take one of those for anti-air purposes, because they are quite useful and much cheaper to buy then a Sukhoi fighter jet, and to send it especially if they have anti-aircraft superiority. And then next, I will take these Petir Conkers. They are excellent Saklos missiles for anti-tank purposes, and these are very, very handy if you fight against, say, for example, the Israeli Merkavas or the British Challenger 1s and 2s. They're very effective against them, so we'll take that. So next up is support. Now, I tend to, with most of my builds, to go with mostly anti-aircraft. Just because I know that most people will either have helicopters or troop transports or some sort of air attack at some point in a match. So the Tunguska-M is one of my favorites, to be honest, of anti-aircraft vehicles. Its missiles is very, very accurate. I can attest to that, and their 3mm radar rounds is deadly against choppers. So I would say take one, maybe two, depending on your preference. I will take a normal Tunguska. Their accuracy is a little bit lower, and their range isn't uh, that big of a difference with the better Tunguska, missile-wise. It's just the accuracy you fail a little bit in the range, but they have the same 3mm, and you can build a little bit more of them. Next thing up is the Bucks, BUKs, however you want to call them. Now these guys I like to put back in the rear at my spawn area if they come with a strafing round of bombers or whatever, or if helicopters try to do a sneak ambush from the side, as they tend to do. And these guys are just deadly against any of those type of threats. I almost skipped over another thing that I would like to put in. The Malchus. The Malchus are very good. They have excellent range, and the dispersion is very good. However, they only have 8 shots, which again is excellent if you're trying to take out one specific target, like a command vehicle or such. But the problem is that because there's only a few small rounds, if you want to use it for like large bombardment of an area, it's not that effective. So I would recommend going for the MS or the Mstar-S. Once again, apologize if I butcher these names. They have 35 rounds, 152mm rounds. These will fire a little bit wider area, and also you can, hopefully, with good aiming and luck, you will take out more targets in one. The dispersion isn't that much higher, meters-wise, than the Malka. It's only about 1,000 meters, which is not too bad in this grand scheme of things, like the Akatsiya? Yeah, Akatsiya. I'm gonna go with Akatsiya. So that is excellent. So I would recommend going for the Mstar-S. I would actually take 2 of them because artillery is actually quite important if you play with the Russians. So onwards, next to the tanks, the main force behind us for the armored deck. So first things first, which type of T-80 would you like to use? So first off, you have these 2, which are basically your top T-80s you can choose of. Well, actually this one as well, but for the purpose of this, we'll just go with this one. The T-80UM is excellent. It has the same gun, as you can see, but it has a better stabilizer, better AP power, and because of it, it has these newer SAL missiles, the Invar SAL missiles, instead of the Cobra Saklos missiles. They have an AP power of 24, which can penetrate even the highest value on Blue 4 country tanks. So that is excellent, and it's at 170, which is roughly about the same, and is in some cases a little bit more cheaper than the Blue 4 counterparts. So I would recommend getting that for you, especially for late game. Then the T-80, the normal one, is, in my opinion, not a bad tank to get as well. You get, if you take 2 decks, it's 26 of them. They have good AP power. They can take out most tough tanks. They don't have the best frontal armor, or any armor for that matter, but they're a good spammable unit at 65 points, or I don't know how you wish to call it. So onwards then next to the next set. Now obviously we need to get the T-72s in here as well, just because of the spammability as well. So the T-72BU or the T-70B. The T-72B has a better AP power, but it doesn't, it has the same AP power, except the T-72 2BU has a 40% stabilizer, which is much more useful than no stabilizer at all. So I would recommend getting those for the top T72s. Then the T72A I usually get as well. It's the same frontal armor value as the normal T80s. However, they do have a slightly lower AP armor power. I mean, and but you can buy a lot more of them at 30 for the two decks for 55 points on offer. So onwards next. Now the T64 and the T62s I actually quite enjoy as tanks, mostly because they are very decent tanks actually. They have the SAL missiles on them with great AP power, and the guns as well has pretty decent firepower as well. So I will get two of those. And the last one, this one I would say is up to you, but I would either get the T64A or the T60 or the T72. The T72 basically has a slower rate of fire, but is more accurate. At the shorter range, granted, but at 45 points, another good spammable unit, especially if the enemy is going for more of a mechanized rush, then the T72s are good just to hold the line until you can deal with that. So for recon purposes, everybody knows so far in my decks I don't really put much stock into having a lot of different recon units. However, one recommendation I would go for is the Razvedka scouts. They have the Mi-24Ds as their mode of transport. These are actually quite effective if you want to use them for like getting them behind the enemy lines, dropping these troops in their cap point and wreak some havoc through that way. I personally don't do that. I prefer to take my enemies head on, but this is an excellent tactic for the new beginners of Wargame Red Dragon. So I would recommend to get the MI2. They're good scouts at a very reasonable price, and that is all that I will be putting in for the recon. For vehicles as well, I'm not gonna go too heavily in here for stuff. I might go with the BMPTs. They're good infantry killers, and they do a not too bad job at suppressing light-skinned vehicles. So I will get the BMPTs as well. And because I'm not getting a lot of recon or vehicle units, that leaves up for the helicopters and aircraft. Now, helicopters are essential in a Russian deck, especially if you don't have the point score to get your more tougher Russian tanks, because they're the blue 4 group or even a red 4 group is pushing you back. So I would say go for 2 Mi-24 VPs and 1 Mi-24P, and that leaves you with 13 points which you can spend on your Air Force. Now, Russian Air Force, as we all know, is excellent, but quite pricey. So I would recommend firstly going for the Su-25T. This is basically the Russian 810, and actually, in my opinion, better, just because it has a better speed than the 810, and because of those, a lot of SAL missiles, they can really do a lot of havoc if there isn't missile anti-air systems in the area, but they do tend to take a beating. So if one or so missiles grazes it or hits it, it does have a slight chance of surviving and getting it out still. So I would recommend getting the train variant of that, so you have two of them. Now, here is an interesting thing. The Su-27S I would recommend going for to get as a air superiority fighter. Its Wimpel SIM-ACT radar missiles is generally a little bit further range than most Blue 4 air superiority fighters, except of course the F-14 Tomcat, which has a 12 kilometer range, where this one has an 8.4 kilometer range. So I would recommend getting that for air superiority. Now here is where the situation does differ a little bit. I like the Su-24M for the AoE bombs. It has 3,250 kilograms, which is a lot. And these bombs can do damage against soft skin, hard skin vehicles, infantry, buildings, you name it, they can do it. So I would recommend putting that in your deck. Now, anti-air radar missiles, anti-radar missiles, I should rather say, is basically what you need to get for yourself if you have a problem with anti-air ground vehicles, which is almost an always scenario. So if I can just find the vehicle that I wish to get for this. Do, 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 do. Is it this one? Yes, it is this one. MiG-25BM. And it has 4 anti-radar missiles at 5,250 meters. That's basically the best you will be able to get for the anti-radar missiles on both sides of the war spectrum. Accuracy 65%, stabilizer 65%, and AP power of 28. So it will be able to kill anything that it launches if it hits, which I do have to say the MiGs have a higher chance of hitting than most of the Blue 4 vehicles that I've encountered of late. I don't know if that is because of the game AI that works out that way or what, but yeah, so I will recommend getting them. You can only get one, which is unfortunate. The others, you can get others, but their range is not as good, but I would recommend getting that one for the extra couple of 100 meters. Now here I would recommend either getting an IL-102. It has 14 500 kilogram bombs, which is a massive amount of tonnage to drop. It's also AoE, so this is a good basically a more hardened target. It can take a lot of damage than the Su-24. But you can also, in my opinion, get the 500 kilogram bombs from the Yak-38, which is napalm. Now this one is very effective for getting those infantry if you have very spammy infantry. However, unfortunately, I do see that I don't have space for my aircraft, so I would recommend then, apologies, getting just the Mi-24Ps in. I've got a little bit carried away with the helicopters there. So, but that is always, that's the thing about the Russians, you have to kind of customize it. This is my overall armor deck. Where is the Yak? The Yak for the napalm. This is an overall deck. As I said, if you have a better suggestion, or you know of a better deck that you like to use, please let me know in the comments below. It always helps out other players as well as myself. I mean, nobody is too experienced to learn something, so please let me know. But this is a Russian armored deck which is custom designed for this year. I've seen a lot of infantry spamming in players online the past couple of months with Wargame, so I do see a trend of that being this year's focus. So definitely check out the napalm bombers for the Russians. But that is all for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe down below. It really helps out a lot. And I hope to see you guys next time. The videos will be a lot more constant now, so don't worry about the content. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and goodbye.